And I would just like to point out before I get started that I have more than one tie. I know that tie featured quite prominently. I've actually got two. I should have bought the other one today. How are you feeling today on this beautiful Adelaide day? Absolutely good, isn't it? Can I just say it's great to be in a room that brings together the energy of South Australia's leaders. Our state is currently experiencing above-trend growth and nation-leading business confidence. That's not my commentary, it's commentary from leading economists and the Australian Bureau of Statistics. This Sunday marks 12 months since South Australians voted for a change of government. It's a great time to reflect on some of the things that have been done in our first year in office, and more importantly, to lay out our priorities going forward. But first, there are a few acknowledgements that I'd like to make here today. First of all, I acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and that we acknowledge their ongoing spiritual relationship with their very precious country. I'd like to acknowledge David Pisoni, the Minister for Innovation and Skills, and his Chief Executive, Mark Duffy. Can I acknowledge our very first Chief Entrepreneur in South Australia, Jim Wally, who is with us today. Miriam Silver, who is the President of CEDA for the South Australian and Northern Territory Division, and the only South Australian who is on the National CEDA Board. Hamilton Calder, the CEDA State Director for South Australia and the Northern Territory, and all those who have already contributed to the update this morning. Christina Clifton, the Senior Economist with the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, Andy Keogh, the Managing Director of Saab Australia, Jane Pickering, Chief Executive of Eldercare. I know we heard from Grant Wilkins, also the Vice-Chancellor of the Flinders University, Colin Sterling, or as he says, Sterling, and also Mark Young from the Adelaide Airports Corporation. Other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what a difference a year can make. A new state government and a renewed business confidence that has really permeated our entire state. When we were elected, I told my ministers that in sharp contrast to our predecessors, we would be under-promising and over-delivering. I asked them to embrace three key core values: humility, accountability and delivery, the key watchwords for everything that I wanted them to do as ministers. And a year in, I want to publicly thank each and every one of them. Working together, I think we've restored a robust and rigorous cabinet process for governing and implementing our reform agenda. We've enhanced government accountability, efficiency and delivery by ensuring agency chief executives no longer report to multiple ministers. We've demonstrated respect for our workforce by recognising the key role of the public sector in implementing our reform agenda. And I think we've maturely managed our relationship with the federal government and the other states and territories to the significant benefit of our state. Can we do more? We can, and we certainly will. Even though we've introduced the biggest round of tax cuts in our state's history, we've initiated a record infrastructure investment program. We've established the Skilling South Australians program to create 20,800 new apprenticeships and traineeships. And we've landed the National Space Agency headquarters here for Adelaide. These are important achievements, but they're not ends in themselves, because there's a lot more for us to do, a lot of time that we need to make up. We spent much of our first year pulling the foundations together for a much better government in South Australia. And as we begin our second year, we commit to building quickly and creatively on those foundations. So South Australia continues to become much stronger and more confident about our future, the place we hold in our nation, and how the rest of the world regards us. I believe actions and achievements speak louder than words, and we will continue to focus on the key word of delivery. As an example, the announcement last year that Adelaide would become the home to the Australian Space Agency headquarters speaks to what South Australia is becoming and what more we can be, what more we can achieve. Securing the Space Agency showed just what can be achieved with an ambitious focus on the future, when the collective enterprise and energy of South Australians is unleashed, when we meticulously plan and credibly advocate for our state. We didn't win that bid because we were owed. We won it because we were committed and because we were convincing. We were ready to lift our aspirations above our existing frontiers. Securing the Space Agency was one of those important psychological moments in time for our state. when South Australia threw off its inferiority complex, rediscovered our own self-respect and started to feel better about ourselves again. When a lot of people came together around the conviction that, yes, we will show Australia how again, and we can do this. Not just the government and other parties in the parliament whose support was absolutely vitally important for this bid, but our growing space sector, other businesses, startups, innovators and entrepreneurs, our three wonderful universities, training and skills providers, our schools, individuals with ideas and inspiration, convinced this was something South Australia just had to shoot for. In all, an ecosystem that reflects a new mindset in South Australia about what we can become. A mindset based on strength, not weakness, on enterprise, not entitlement, cooperation, not confrontation, effective government coordination without the need for government interference and overt control. And what is happening right now on the site of the old Royal Adelaide Hospital, rebadged Lot 14, shows it's a mindset that has taken root and is already flowering. A mindset that there is little South Australia can't achieve as we reach beyond the stars. Ladies and gentlemen, Lot 14 will have, in addition to the headquarters of our nation's new space agency, we'll have startups and entrepreneurs generating new ideas for the market, high-growth businesses exploring new technologies to build on their established success. We'll have investors with a solid pipeline of opportunities to back emerging and growing businesses, and we'll have successful entrepreneurs mentoring and guiding future entrepreneurs. I'm 100% convinced that the energy being generated around Lot 14 will spread across our entire state and well beyond, as Lot 14 grows into a global creation and innovation neighbourhood. It's a place that will create high-value jobs and industries to help secure our state's economic future and position Adelaide as the start-up capital of our nation. The neighbourhood is enabled as a gig city precinct with very high-speed internet connectivity. The market response to Lot 14 is completely and utterly overwhelming to date. 70% of available commercial space is already committed or under negotiation. 5 tenants have moved in and more than 175 people are already collaborating within this neighbourhood. An estimated 1,000 people will be working at Lot 14 later this year. More than 50 industry and public events have been held on the site so far, attracting more than 30,000 visitors. We've moved quickly during the past 12 months to unlock this huge potential, not only for Adelaide, but for the state, for the nation. Our creation and innovation neighbourhood is already beginning to thrive because it is being established within the heritage buildings retained on the site. We've moved quickly. As demolition work continues on the rest of the site, we're also progressing the 2 other major projects that we committed for Lot 14, the International Centre for Tourism, Hospitality and Food Studies and the National Aboriginal Art and Cultures Gallery. To support our planning, we've signed a Memorandum of Understanding for a new city deal focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, I've used what is happening at Lot 14 as one window for you into the economic and other priorities of my government. At the same time, we've been working hard across the entire public sector to put the essential foundations in place to provide much better government for all South Australians. My government took office just over 12 months ago with a clear mandate to pursue economic growth. With the right mindset, there is a great opportunity to do so, but we need to be much more open to the rest of the world. And I know this was something that was discussed on the panel this morning. The government has had a close look at how South Australia undertakes international engagement to support our exporters. This month we've released the Joyce report, a major report on what we intend to do to build on the work that we've already undertaken in our first year to re-establish effective engagement across global markets. I've made it clear that my government is not in the business of singling out individual businesses for special treatment. We want all industries to grow and to succeed, and that's why we've established 3 new funds: the Economic and Business Growth Fund, the Regional Growth Fund, and the Research, Commercialisation and Startup Fund. They are targeted not at individual companies, but towards opportunities that provide broader strategic economic development benefit to the entire state. We're currently considering a number of very significant industry sector proposals for support from the $100 million Economic and Business Growth Fund. We've focused on getting the economic fundamentals right, and we've seen a market response with a strong lift in capital investment in South Australia over the past 12 months. As well as a completely new approach to growing our whole economy, my government firmly believes growing a skilled workforce is another way in which we can better support all businesses. Accordingly, we are delivering a fresh start for TAFE with additional support of more than $100 million going into TAFE over the next 3 years. These additional resources will support improved service delivery and implement a new quality system. To guide TAFE into a better future, David Coltman will take up the position of Chief Executive mid-next month. He is an absolute prize catch for South Australia. David comes from a Deputy Vice-Chancellor's role at Melbourne Swinburne University of Technology and brings extraordinarily valuable leadership experience in the vocational education and training sector to this very important, crucial role for our state. Over 4 years, we're also investing more than $200 million in skills and training to create those 20,800 apprenticeships and traineeships that I spoke about earlier. On our election, we made it a priority to be the very first state to secure federal government support from the Skilling Australians Fund, and we did this for very good reason. With the establishment of the National Space Agency, the pace quickening on the naval shipbuilding projects down at Osborne and the Whyalla Steelworks through a $600 million upgrade, there has simply never been a better time to take up an apprenticeship or traineeship in South Australia. To maximise these and other opportunities, we've revitalised the Training and Skills Commission to provide industry with a much stronger and direct voice to government. A refreshed commission commenced in January this year. It includes leaders from key sectors, including defence and aerospace, IT and cyber security, construction, mining and energy. Industry skills councils are also being established to ensure we receive direct feedback from those at the coalface on priorities for skills and training and workforce development, and that government investment is aligned and directed with industry requirements in mind. The greatly increased funding we've been able to allocate to skills and training is one major outcome of the cooperative relationships that we now have with the federal coalition government in Canberra. Another is the progress being made to address South Australia's need, our very important need, to grow the size of our population. While we're doing all that we can to train and skill South Australians, skilled and business migrants also remain important. I recently presented to the Prime Minister a report or a submission which had input from Tasmania and the Northern Territory. The three of us face very different population challenges to the rest of the country. We have to grow our populations to deal with some of the very significant skills constraints that we have, whilst increased business migration is also an important opportunity to generate more investment here in our state. With the Prime Minister seeking a population strategy driven from the bottom up, our submission seeks to encourage more skilled and business migration, an increased share of international students into South Australia, and keeping more young South Australians living and working in their home state. Let me look for a moment at the international student market. Shortly after our election, we established a Ministerial Advisory Committee for International Education, comprising representatives from all sectors of the international education industry in South Australia. The work of this committee has now advanced to the stage where ambitious new targets are being finalised for the next decade. The potential is significant when it is considered that for every 4 international student enrolments in South Australia, 1 local job is created. This is just one reason why population growth must be a major priority for South Australia going forward. We'll soon be rolling out a number of initiatives to generate greater population growth, because South Australia must take complete and utter charge of our population future. Now let me turn to energy policy for a moment. In January, South Australia experienced record high temperatures. This tested us all. This tested our state. The government's focus was on our people, our families and our businesses. To ensure their power was not interrupted when it was most needed, we worked very closely with the Australian Energy Market Operator, AEMO. We acted swiftly and early to reduce power consumption at government operations and sites. We also worked closely with large energy users to reduce demands on the grid. It will take time. It will take time to restore the strength and resilience to our energy system and our electricity grid in South Australia to improve reliability and to reduce costs to consumers. In the coming years, an interconnector with New South Wales, new generation and the coordination of distributed resources such as batteries are critical to arrest the decline and restore the strength of our energy grid. This is why it is so critical that the South Australian Government continues to deliver on our energy solution. This includes fast-tracking the interconnector, developing grid-scale storage and supporting the largest rollout of home batteries per capita anywhere in the world. It's an approach which has been strongly endorsed by AEMO. It is based on practical, common-sense policy and not ideology. I've referred to a range of major initiatives that we have implemented in our first year to help create a growing, stronger, more confident South Australia and foreshadowed further initiatives as we move into our second year of government. While pursuing these initiatives, we've had to undertake considerable budget repair to ensure that government finances are on a sound and sustainable footing for the longer term. So let me conclude this economic and political overview with some commentary on the state's financial situation and the state's financial strategy. When introduced, the last budget of our predecessors projected a net operating surplus of $72 million for the 17-18 year. But the final outcome showed a very different situation. In fact, a $313 million operating deficit. This was a deterioration over 12 months of $385 million, or more than $1 million per day. Our strategy to deal with the challenges that we have inherited and to provide the tax relief needed for families and businesses across the state require very strict discipline with spending. Our significant constraint in recurrent spending means growth in total operating expenses is limited to a nominal 1.6% per annum over the current cycle. Our approach to budget management has been recognised, and I'm very pleased and proud to say, with a rating upgrade from ratings agency S&P, which took South Australia back up to the AA+ position. That was off the back of our very first budget. A fortnight ago, unfortunately, the task of budget repair was made even more challenging, with the Commonwealth Grants Commission estimating a reduction of $329 million next financial year in GST funding to South Australia. This makes it all the more imperative that all government agencies deliver on the savings task that they were given in our first budget. Our first budget also provided a massive $11.3 billion over 4 years for investment in critical, productive infrastructure for our state. On average, this is $250 million more per year than our predecessors invested in their final year in office. We believe, with a continuation of record low interest rates, this is an appropriate investment strategy, as well as a necessary one to support the ambitions that we have to grow our state. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, it is pleasing to be able to note that at the end of our first year in office, we have had this occasion coincide with business confidence in South Australia rising to levels that we haven't seen for more than a decade. This is reflected in rises of 6.3% in new business investment and 9% in private new capital expenditure, both well above national trends. I don't want to claim any credit for this. That goes to the businesses that are out there, people that are represented in this room, who are investing and they're growing their businesses and they are creating the jobs. Our accountability as South Australians, as their government, is to ensure that our policies encourage and importantly enable our state to grow and become much stronger than it has been for a very long time. That's what we intend to go on doing. Thank you very much.